for the growth and development of our people in Dominica, especially as it relates to employee development, leadership development, and so much more. And we ask this question as we continue to explore the perennial question: what is needed to advance Dominica and the Caribbean region, and what role can each one of us play with this mission? As we continue to see the world is changing and evolving, we look at changes we should be taking advantage of and what changes we need to make in order to move our islands and the people forward. We all know that we continue to face many battles and challenges in Dominica and the Caribbean region, but here on Roots Connections, we especially recognize that in order to effect the change we are seeking, our people must be financially independent so that they can be free to make other important and independent decisions, including electing their government. So again, I want to say a very warm welcome to you. This is episode number 71 of Roots Connections on Q for today, May 22nd, 2024. And I am your host, Simone Matthew. Before I forget, today is my nephew, Eric Senhouse. Today's his birthday. So a very special birthday to you, Eric Senhouse out there in New Rochelle. Today we are happy to be joined by Dr. Kevin Laura, who is an organizational change strategist, and Miss Shanika Hamilton, who is a colleague relations partner. We were also expecting Dr. John Loblack, but unfortunately, he had an emergency to attend to. So again, we are exploring the question: are we investing in our human capital for the advancement of Dominica? But before we get started, let us always remember to pray for our country, Dominica, and all the challenges and battles we continue to face in so many areas. So again, let's give a warm Roots Connection welcome to our guests as we thank them for taking time out of their busy schedules to be here. So we now invite them to unmute their mics and greet the audience with any introduction they would like to share, while I go ahead and share the link to this program to everyone who is waiting for the link. So of course, ladies first, Shanika, we will start with you. Just give us a brief introduction of who you are, where in Dominica you're from, etc.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shanika Hamilton. I actually came from Goodwill, Dominica. So big up to all the detailing posse. I know there's quite a bit of us listening. I actually fell in love with human resources a long time ago. My dad was in business, and from that point on, I sort of just grew the fascination of why, how do businesses work, and obviously knowing that it's the human capacity, right? It's the human being that really helps the business function and work. And so my exploration in that just led me to the field of human resources, where I was able to, work in the mainly in the healthcare industry, in human resources, and see, while working with a lot of leaders, the impact that it has had on the organization and its bottom line.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Shanika. I only reached out to you today, and you were so kind and gracious to accept the invitation. So indeed, a very, very special thank you for being here this evening. Dr. Laura, over to you.
You're welcome.
Well, good evening to everyone. I am so happy as a fellow Dominican to be on this program with Dr. Simon Matthew and Shanika. I am from Dominica Grand Bay, Jean Bay. I'm actually from a little hamlet in Grand Bay called Montine. So my address would be Montine Grand Bay, Dominica. And my letters would come in as maybe it's something they would put Tetmon, Grand Bay, Dominica. Went to the Dominica Grammar School, then Sixth Form College, then worked a little bit, and then left Dominica for, of course, educational pastures, which turned into many other pastures. So I got into leadership development after being a professor for maybe 18 years at the university. I segued into HR, where I was hired as a leadership development specialist at first, and that gave me a deep dive into what I call leadership development. I gained an insatiable passion for that field thereafter, and right now I actually am in the field full time as my own company. So I am so delighted that Dr. Simon, you invited me here to be part of this delivery, and hopefully, out of what will be discussed, businesses and employees in Dominica will benefit and maybe advance their own personal development for a better Dominica.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, thank you guys for being here this evening for this very important topic. I am looking forward to our conversation and all that you will contribute to our understanding of the importance of investing in our human capital for the benefit of Dominica. So again, if you joined us just a little bit late, welcome to Roots Connections, where we continue to position Dominica to take advantage and benefit from the world where change is the only constant. As always, we are grateful to you, our audience, and we look forward to your contribution when we open the phone lines later in the discussion. We thank you for joining us on Facebook and YouTube as well. And if you're interested in joining us, you can do so on Facebook at Q95 FM Radio, as well as Push Past 10. And we are also live on YouTube at Q95 FM Radio. So don't forget to follow and subscribe to these channels so you will always know when we are going live with our conversations and our discussions. We remain grateful to Mr. G and the Q95 FM Radio family for the opportunity to get together here to tap into our human resources, our Dominican experts at home and abroad who work towards advancing Dominica and reversing that brain drain that Dominica and the Caribbean has experienced for decades. We also want to say thank you to Lambi. Lambi, always great to see you, who will take our calls later in the program, as well as our engineer, Sherwin Norris, who does a great job of keeping us connected. So let's get started. So as we're getting prepared for the Dominica Economic Summit on June 4th to 6th, and we see the significant investment that our speakers and presenters have made to be at the pinnacle of their careers, it begs the questions. Are we as a Dominican community at home and abroad investing in our people so that they too can ascend to the pinnacle of growth and development in different areas, but especially as it relates to employment? So let's hear from our guests as they share with us. So guys, I think what we want to get started with today is just to tell us a little bit more about your profession. So Dr. Laura, let me begin with you. So kind of just delve into your company and some of the work that you do.
Thank you, Simone. My company is called Top Edge Leadership Solutions, Inc. And the website would just be www.topedgeleadershipsolutions.com. And we are consultants. We deliver technical training to leaders in organizations. We also address employees' developmental needs. Many times you have leaders who lead and the employees are not performing at their optimum level simply because there's a misalignment between the management style or leadership style that is applied to an employee based on the employee's development level. So we're looking at two things most of the times. Who am I as a leader? What's my leadership style? And does my leadership style align with the employee that I'm leading development level? So we teach a lot of those dynamics where we leaders are taught to diagnose an employee's development level. At what level are they on the task that you've given them? And if they are on a level 1, for example, development level 1, what style of leadership are you using to enhance them? Or is your leadership style used, really frustrating them, therefore causing them not to have the optimal potential or performance required. So we do a lot of that. We do a lot of in-class training. We do a lot of team building exercises that is required for employee performance. So these are some of the things. I'm sure that as we talk tonight, you'll hear maybe more specifics of what we do. But it's all geared towards employee development for better results in organizations.
Yeah, excellent. Shanika, let's come over to you. Tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Sure. So what I do is really I'm the bridge between the policies, the operational piece of the organization, and the human capital. And what I mean by that is my title says colleague relations partner. I'm a colleague relations partner for, you know, nationwide healthcare organization in the United States. And what I do quite a bit is I collaborate with a lot of managers and directors. Most times there's an issue, an infraction, a training that needs to happen. And where I come in is to really sometimes train new managers on what they should be really doing in an organization. Sometimes some managers, they know their work, but they don't know how to deliver the message. And so what I find myself doing quite a bit is, giving them almost like hand holding sometimes, showing them some ways where, they can speak with the employees, giving them some scripts, very, very hands-on type of
Mhm.
work. I'm giving them scripts, giving them coaching, showing them the policies, showing them how we apply the policies to their everyday life. So I find myself working quite a bit with managers, directors, executive directors, on just coaching them on, the use of some certain platforms. We have platforms that can look at different personalities to evaluate their team members, evaluate their personalities, and how to really hone in on that diversity, right? And how to really just take advantage of that genius, because I feel like all of us have a genius inside, right?
Mhm.
And how to just tap into that genius. One of the things that I realized that from my own personal training and my interest in leadership, I have noticed a shift, and Dr. Laurent can probably speak to it. I have noticed that there is a shift to from strategy to almost like a co-creation of leadership. And so many times when I speak to leaders, I even though I hold your hand, I also, give them the information that they are also responsible for helping their team members be a co-creator of whatever vision that they want to fulfill. So that is in essence of what I do. Human resources, there is that part where I have to help a manager do a performance improvement plan, which is not always the nice touchy feely part of human resources, but a very necessary one.
Yeah.
Um, I also work on just training managers on different software and different, again, as I said, different scripts. So yeah.
Yeah, excellent. And the reason that one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation is that it seems like to me that employees in Dominica seem to be disposable. So, you hear comments such as, if you don't like it, you can leave. And I'm talking about not, maybe a sales clerk who is easily replaceable. But when you hear that being said, in a profession, a highly skilled profession, I won't call the profession, but a highly skilled profession where the employees are limited, but the attitude of the manager is simply, if you don't like the conditions that you're working under, you can leave. It certainly tells me that in Dominica, our employees are seen as disposable. So that is one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation on the need to really invest in employees and the benefits that an organization can attain from investing in their employees. So I think we would all agree that employees are the foundation of every successful organization. So let's start by looking at the importance of employee development. Now, again, we are looking at the business sector, but let us keep in mind that this conversation applies to other aspects of society, such as, our organizations, our civic organizations, our groups, and even our political parties. So when folks start contributing to the discussion, I want you to make the connection to what we are talking about and how it relates beyond employment. So if you're on Facebook, and again, let's thank everyone who's joining us on Facebook so far. Alvin Thomas, I see you. Alista Irish, Carl Kofi James, Valerie Honore. Hey, Valerie, nice to see you. So thank you for joining us. Don't forget to share the live as you're coming in. So again, this is applicable to different areas of our society. So why is employee development important? So let's start with you, Shanika. Why is employee development important?
It's important because it's a culture, right? So when we think about leadership and the impact, it's really development of any group, whether it's an organization, whether it's a country, whether it's a city. We have to think about the culture. Um, Development helps people grow. When I think about leadership, to go back, I think of it in the somewhat like an ABC, if you will. Um, the person who is a leader has to be an architect, right? And the person also has to be a bridger and also a catalyst. And so when I think about development, I feel that if we are partnering, right? I am this organization and you are my partner. If you are if I help you become better at what you do, you can make me become better than
Mhm.
at what I do. And so I think development, we look at it almost in a wrong way, if you will.
Yep.
We look at development as I need to gain skills, just me gaining skills. But we have to look at it as development helps us to become catalysts. If I grow, you grow. And if we become, not just if you're a vendor to something say for instance, I sell or I purchase something from you, now you can move from being just a vendor to a partner. So I see leadership and culture and development on such a, in such a different way because I see the magnitude of it, right? I see how much impact that it can have on our culture.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dr. Laura, let me come to you with the same question. But something else that just came to my mind is I was listening, I think it was the Dominica Public Service program I was listening to one time, and they were talking about, the importance of training employees and giving them opportunities for growth. And somebody made the comment that they heard from an employer, why should I invest with you and train you and give you development opportunities so you can take my job? So that to me speaks about the mindset of managers because, and the reality is opportunities are so limited in Dominica that might be a reality for a lot of people. So what do you say to that when somebody says to you, why should I invest in you and train you? And then you can potentially take my job because that is a real concern.
Dr. Simone, this is a laughable one. I think I shared that with you in casual conversation.
Yes.
Actually, I was in that happened in Dominica. I sometime last year I did a series of training for select groups in Dominica, and in our promotional activities to get more people to attend, some one of my promoters told me that one of the key business owners in Dominica made that statement that you just quoted, where they said, why should I send my people to any training? Next thing they want to usurp my authority or whatever that is. And I thought that was so laughable because one thing that is clear, the more developed your people, the more time you have for yourself,
Mhm.
the more you have, the more time you have to be creative, to be more innovative, to spend time with your family, to have reflection time for the growth of the company,
Yeah.
because you have developed your people to a sufficient level where you're training your bench. It's called, it's any sports team, any good coach which a leader ought to be a coach indirectly speak indirectly. You train your bench that there will be continuity in the operations. God forbid something happens. All right. So when you talk about the attitude in Dominica, especially where some employees are seen as disposable, I carry the notion that every employee wants to feel that they make a contribution. It's
Valued.
part of our build up. We
Mhm.
want meaning in our lives. I mean, that corresponds with Maslow's hierarchy of,
Hierarchy of needs.
and one of them really is self actualization, and that people want to know if they're involved in something. They want to know that their contribute their time, because time is the almost precious resource. And if my time is invested or employed in something, I want to know it is worth it. Otherwise, frustration will kick in, self esteem issues will creep in. People will feel, what a waste of time. Can you imagine spending 20 years with a
Mhm.
company and all you got from the company was a weekly paycheck,
Mhm.
just to put bread on the table for your kids, but no personal development, no advancement, no self reassurance that I am worth more now as a result of working with that company than I
Mhm.
was when I first started. So I think
Mhm.
it is incumbent on the leaders in companies at home to make employee development a part of their mission, part of their goal, part of their contribution to development of Dominica. And it's just something that is definitely a miss, you know.
Yeah, and you know that is actually my areas of expertise as well because I teach industrial organizational psychology, which is like the psychology of work. So what the research actually shows us is that employees who are engaged and feel that the organization is committed to the development, they are more productive, there's a lower turnover rate, so they're more likely to stay with you, and it increases the profitability of the company. Because let us face it, right? Your employees are the ones who are underground. They're the ones interfacing with your customers. Chances are they're the ones with the suggestions for how you can grow and improve. So that,
Right.
as Dr. Laura has stated, now you have less time to invest in being on a day-to-day basis in the business, more time for spending time with your family, more time for reflection on other ideas. Look at Suki. You know, I love the story of Suki and how he just continues to innovate, he continues to expand, he continues to go beyond where he started because he's a visionary leader,
Mhm.
right? So I think, unfortunately, some folks are just caught up in one idea, and
Yeah.
they don't realize that just because this is the only idea you have employees who are
Right.
your frontline. So maybe if you treat them a little bit better, you offer them opportunities for a little bit of growth, and it begins with a simple conversation. You know, what are your goals? What are you
Right.
interested in regards to this business? And I have to add this as well because sometimes, you know, we talk about, oh, Dominicans have bad attitude, especially when it comes to customer service. When I meet people who have bad attitudes when it comes to customer service, I don't think about the bad attitude they have. I think, wow, probably that employee sees no growth opportunities. We are just there like a little hamster in the spinning wheel,
Mhm.
going round and
Mhm.
around, exhausting yourself and really not having opportunities for growth. So I think we have to be very careful when we encounter people who have quote unquote bad attitudes to realize the underlying reason why that might be the case. So Shanika, you want to contribute anything at
Mhm.
this point?
I was thinking, I mean, there's so much we can do, right? So the manager who has the bad attitude, who made the comment, I would ask him, what's the follow-up? Why do you feel that way? The employees who have the bad attitude, what's going on? What Show me your benefits packet. What is your vacation looking like? Ask those questions. What's your time off? How do you communicate with your manager, right? So that's a big one, because the way that I may want to communicate with my manager may not be the way that my manager would like me to communicate with them. And so being able to be very transparent and speak to where people are, which is a point that Dr. Laura made earlier on, and find out where people are so that you can then help them grow, right? Is necessary, and the only way you can do that is by asking questions. And so I feel that sometimes when we can make those assessments, yes, the customer service is bad, but where's the data, right? We would like to see some data. Let us start building the development process and education in terms of customer service, in terms of personnel development, because now we can say that we've done some data research, or done some data, and this is what we see. We've gone across, whether it's the private sector, whether it's the education sector, we've interviewed 50 out of 100 teachers, and this is the data, and this is what people are saying, and this is what people are asking for. And so we can begin to now integrate some of the technology that is out there, right, to be able to support our employees and also the managers. Because I feel sometimes, the managers get a bad rap, right? They are the ones that have the bad attitudes, but we have to figure out, why do they have the bad attitudes? There must be something that is probably not gelling, right, with them, why they have the bad attitude. So it's really doing a lot of exploration and a lot of data mining.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing I recently discovered, I was looking at an episode, I think it was 60 Minutes, and they were talking about this new approach to employee development. It's called employee ownership. So
Mm-hmm.
employees are now receiving shares in the company, and you
Absolutely.
would be amazed at the employee morale this has created.
Absolutely.
Because let us think of it this way, right? Let us think about a renter versus a homeowner.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to be as invested in your property if you're a renter, right? You're
Exactly.
simply renting, and hopefully one day you will move on. When you're a homeowner, the minute a light bulb it goes off, you're ready to fix it because it's yours.
Mm-hmm.
So if employees feel like they're invested in the company, that you have a stake in the company, then
Mm-hmm.
chances are you're going to have a different mentality when it relates to doing your best, when it relates to sharing an issue that you think you can resolve, when it relates to especially our young people, right? Because they're the ones who are more technologically inclined. They keep up with the trends in technology, so they can say to you, hey, maybe we can use AI in this area, AI in that area,
Exactly.
so you don't have to keep reinventing the wheel on some of the processes and procedures. Dr. Laura, your thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
No, this is extremely important of a point. Um, I was just thinking as you were talking. I just came back last week from St. Lucia. I've been doing a lot of leadership development training in St. Lucia, the credit unions, the banks, and so forth. And I just came back from a new client that I, I came across. And I had a class of about 30, 35. They closed the companies down, the different branches, and had everybody come for that workshop that I was putting on. And one of the things that in strategic management that I tickled them with was how many of you here are working out of compliance? And then I asked the other question, how many of you are working out of commitment?
Hmm.
And I had to differentiate the two for them in that some people are working disjointedly. They are not connected. They are working for the paycheck to put bread on the children. That is an employee who just does just enough of the right thing to maintain their job because they cannot afford to get fired. They need to send their child to school. They need to eat. So they will do just enough to stay employed. That's an employee who is working out of compliance. Now, an employee who works out of commitment, that's a different story. They are totally sold out for the company. They will stay extra hours if the manager asks them to. They will come on a Saturday, a Sunday to put some chairs out or to do a cleanup, whatever it is. That is commitment. And how do you get an employee to move from compliance to commitment? That ties into what you're saying, Dr. Simon. It's all about how involved you had the employee in your strategic planning. Employees need to have a voice even on your mission statement. I asked the question, how many of you know the mission statement of the company? Oh my God, it was just, the mission statement has to be the Bible by which everybody steps. And it has to be crystal clear. It has to be simple enough that every employee works with that in mind. And they will lend their commitment, they will lend their effort, they will lend to the overall overarching goals of the company, rather than just, I just come and whatever they tell me to do, I do, and I go home at 4 o'clock and that's it.
Mhm.
So there is definitely a place for employee engagement, and employees should not be seen as just another piece of the pie. They are as integral to the company as the people who lead the company.
Yeah, and it was so fascinating going back to that 60 Minutes program that I looked at. The guy's name, and of course, this is a program for those companies that are looking to improve, right? So the guy's name, if you want to look him up, his name is Pete Stavers, so Pete. Stavors. So he's on a mission to help companies go into, giving making employers see the value of giving employees more stake in the company, so that they, again, go from that compliance to commitment that Dr. Laura just mentioned. And the tagline for all that he's doing is shared ownership, shared vision, shared success, right?
Very true.
So very important. Shared ownership,
Mhm.
shared vision, shared
Mhm.
success. And that way the employees are more invested
Mhm.
in the organization, and more interested in seeing the
Mhm.
organization profitable. Because if I'm just a
Mhm.
disposable employee, why should I care if your company makes money or not?
Right.
You know what I mean? If I know chances are tomorrow you can simply fire me and hire somebody else, I don't care if you make profits. As a matter of fact, I might just work to sabotage you. I might be sitting at my desk all day pretending like I'm working and not doing jack.
Right.
Because,
But
That's
you
the
know what?
that's
yeah,
the
You
go
know
part
ahead,
what?
I
Shanika.
talk about.
I say that, but sometimes I think to myself, the organization, the impact of the organization is also steered by the leader, the person who's on top, right?
Yep.
So when we look at the organization and we think about who the leader is, sometimes the culture, the sentiments that are sort of that trickle down into the organization, into the front line staff, comes from that leader that is either very passive, or whatever you want to however you want to describe it. So sometimes the people on top have an incredible ability to shift change, because once you begin to realize that you are a co-creator of the organization, of the country, of the city, of whatever it is that you're leading, then you begin to realize the power that you have, and you begin to make the change, right? It's not about just strategy, it's about the co-creation. And co-creation is also looking at the benefits package, looking at the wellness package for your employees. How often do you go on a training seminar? How often do you go on a development, or how often do you go on a retreat? In my spare time, I also coach. So there are a lot of people who come to me and they ask me, okay, I'm getting ready for an interview. I'm getting ready for a conversation. How do I show up? These are some of the issues that I'm having with my director, or these are some of the issues that I'm having with my manager. How do I communicate this? And it's really, my highlight. I'll tell you what my exciting, my favorite thing of the day is when I see a manager's tone in an email has changed. That's just my, like, the flowers, my bouquet of flowers right there, because I can see the impact of the training that I've done time and time again to allow managers to understand that you are a co-creator in this relationship. They are a co-creator as well. It's not just a unilateral conversation, it's a bilateral conversation. So
Yeah, excellent. Dr. Laura, you have anything to share at this point?
I love the trajectory of this here. I think this. I'm starting to think of if I were in Dominica and hearing the trend we are taking right now as a business leader, I would ask myself, where am I in the continuum? Where am I in this?
Mhm.
And I think every leader needs to understand their role in society, because you are not just affecting, you're not just planted. When a business is planted in an environment or a locality, it is not just to bring income and to better
Mhm.
your financial standing. You have a responsibility to the society where you're planted. You are an example to up and coming youth.
Mhm.
The way people in your organization conduct themselves carries a message to the youth. The way, as a leader, you ought to see that your role is creating or developing citizens or employees, citizens, and a better citizenry means a better country. A better
Mhm.
citizen is a better father, a better mother. They
Yep.
go home to implement. They are better villager. They are better city.
Mhm.
They jump on the city council. You help enlighten people. You are a teacher. You are a coach. You're a trainer. Everything lies on you. Now that doesn't,
Mhm.
you alone individually has to do those jobs. But if you have a strategic approach to development, you can
Mhm.
train your downline to help you train everyone to the point where everybody feels self-actualized, everybody feel that they have a better worth, and they can go to their village, drive down at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they go home to their homes a better person. They
Mhm.
jump on a committee in their local area, and they know how to speak, they know how to conduct a meeting, they know how to present, they know they cannot, when you're educated, you cannot behave the same way that everybody else behaves.
Mhm.
You carry an extra coat on your back. Your
Right.
behavior is exemplary, and that is why leaders, business men and women, must see themselves as carrying that responsibility
Mhm.
to polish our down line for
Mhm.
better Dominica.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. Some really important views you guys are presenting today. But I want to make sure we're having a very practical conversation this evening, so we can sit here and talk about investing in employees and training employees until the cows come home. But what do you say to a company who says, "I simply do not have the finances. It is not in the budget to provide training for my employees"? What do you say to that company? Shanika, any thoughts?
People say that you make time for what you want to make time for, right? So if you see that your employees are your bread and butter, you will make time. There are countless opportunities. For instance, right here, you have resources. We are three of us right here, are resources that you can tap into. You certainly can reach out to me. Maybe my price may not be as pricey as Dr. Simone's. Rightly so.
I might do it for
There
free. You
are
never know.
resources. But if there are resources and there is a scale, so it depends on what you would like. And so people need to realize that you're not alone, right? Understand that if you're listening to this program right now and you're wondering, how can I get some help? How can I really educate my staff? And you may not have the the type of capital that you think, because you don't know what it is, right? The only way you can figure out is by starting to ask. And so obviously what you need to do is to reach out to us, and then we can create a program or a plan of action for you and see if it's something that you're interested in. So don't say that there is no hope, there's no help, or there's no hope. There are resources right here right now that are willing to tap into whatever it is that you need, and put a plan of action for you right now. So there's no excuse.
Right, absolutely. And I know, Dr. Laura, you've actually had that response. So I know you can speak on that when, a potential client tells you there's not just not the finances, there's no line in the budget for training employees.
Dr. Simon, I wish they had gone that far. I met with this client in Dominica. You talking? They had a good number of employees, maybe about close to 100, which I thought would be the training and development approach could be segmented, and we had a very healthy sit down board meeting. Yet before and up to this day, no figures have been mentioned. No, but what I was told is, I don't think we can afford you. I don't think we can afford you. And who knows, as a fellow countryman, who knows what I would have done for them?
Right.
Because while I may not be so in the big country US of A, or I've worked in all over the world, England, Switzerland, wherever, I may not, I'm very considerate because I'm still a Dominican at heart, and I really want to see us thrive. And we start with one company at a time. And that company was one of my forerunners. They would have been maybe my first in Dominica. And I really was hoping to make an inroad. The cost was going to be maybe very minimal. In fact, I was going to do a trade-off, not financial trade-off. But I didn't get that chance. And up to now, after I did make some contacts later on, send some correspondence. Up to now, not one word.
And you know that too is a part of being a visionary, right? Because here you're talking about a trade-off, and I always think, exchange is no robbery, right? So maybe in exchange for my skills, there's something you can offer me, right? So that it doesn't become a monetary thing. There are also free resources. If you're genuinely interested in investing in your people and you don't have the finances, but you see the potential in your people, there are free online resources. You can simply, Google online resources that might be of interest to you. There's this website called Udemy, Udemy, that offers like courses for next to nothing. I did a social media management course. I paid $9.95 for it, and I turned around and sold it for $500 when I taught somebody the course. So the point is, if you're genuinely interested in investing in people, like
Yeah.
Shanika said, if you are willing, there is a way. There is a way you can get around it, or maybe just train them in what you already know, right?
Right.
Train them in what you already know. Talk
Uh,
to them about the mistakes you've made
mhm,
along the way and what
mhm,
you've learned from the mistakes. That is of
right.
value as well. But it shows
Mhm,
that you're
mhm.
investing in your employees, and then that in turn improves employee morale. So they want to do more for you because you're not just simply another employee that they can get rid of if they wake up in a bad mood tomorrow. Shanika.
I was gonna say it goes back again to being the catalyst, right? That I mentioned earlier. If you see yourself as an individual and you think that just development means me being developed only, then you don't see the value that everybody else has. Everybody around us is a genius. And so maybe the information may not come from me, but it may come from someone that I know, right? But you only find out when you tap into the knowledge. It's almost like the matrix, right? We've all seen the matrix. You have to be plugged in. You have to, well, unplug yourself in the matrix, but you have to basically, you have to know what you're supposed to, either you unplug or you're plugged in, right? So you have to either decide what you want to do. Do you want to stay not knowing, or do you really want to know and explore the vastness of the education or the enlightenment that you can really tap into? It's out there, and it's just a matter of tapping into it.
Yeah, and we're coming up on the 9 p.m. hour. So, guys, get ready. If you want to call in, you'll be able to do so in about 15 minutes or so time. And the other thing a lot of employers might be thinking is, well, if I fire this person, I can simply replace them. I don't have to spend money. I won't have to run ads. I can just put word of mouth out there. So chances are someone will refer someone who will get the job. But I think one of the things that they're not thinking of, and I think Dr. Laura, we had that conversation, is the cost of rehiring another person. So you may be thinking, well, I'm not paying for ads, I'm not paying for radio ads, newspaper ads, or anything, but there is a cost that you're incurring for having to rehire other people. For example, the time it is going to take to train that person to get up to speed with what is required from them when you already had someone who was trained on the processes and procedures. So Dr. Laura, talk to us about that, the cost of hiring.
Yeah, there's a formula
Mhm.
about the cost. or bringing a new employee in, it's almost said, it's almost a half to 2/3 of the person's salary.
That's
Mm-hmm.
correct. That's
Because
correct.
if you consider the number of um, avenues or
Players.
things you have to tap in, the price can be very high. No, in Dominica, it might not seem that way, or it might, as you said, people are, dispensable. Just so we bring somebody in, but the, there's something about employee morale when you bring a new member in. There has to be those steps of a team forming, storming, norming, and performing. So just when you had the forming, then the storming, which would be the fight and the so forth. I didn't like that employee. I don't like him at all. But then later on, you made amends, and we have normalized things, and then we are performing now. Something happened. Get rid of one of us. That whole cycle has to start again, and that we have to fight again. Try to know each other's personality. I don't like to sit next to her. I don't like. Then we have to then get as we start to perform again. Maybe you fire another person. My point is that there is a learning curve that is critical for every employee. Now, your involvement as a leader in that learning curve is critical as well. And you bring the people to a point where they move from development level 1 to development level 4, which would be an expert, from a novice to an expert. Your job is to do that. That's where you apply leadership skills. You have to know your leadership style. Are you an S1? Are you an S2? Are you an S3? Are you an S4? Are you applying the proper leadership style to that person's developmental needs? And for you to master that, you must learn the technique of diagnosing a person's development level. And when you have done that, you should cherish the fact that you now have that person on a trajectory of growth, and you should do everything you can with discipline, with clarity, with just being transparent. Let the person know how we do things around here is such and such, but we are going to move. I'm going to help you grow. And it's better for you if you take that time to invest, because you'll have multiple people who can duplicate what you've done. So it will ease you up 2 years down the road. You'll have breathing space. And I keep saying that one of the things I recognize in the Caribbean, everybody is busy. You talk to a manager, you come to see a manager or an owner. Oh, he's all, he's too busy to see you right now.
Yep.
He's doing what? You should be big on money if you're that busy. But most it's a misguided, misaligned business. And I think my heart goes out for people like that, because you're busy doing what? Why is it that you have to be the one doing everything in your business? That tells something about your leadership style, right? So there is help for leaders to learn and practice the most effective approaches that will bring them joy and happiness and more time with their families, at the same time developing their employees.
Well, the other thing you have to consider is that they're busy because they haven't trained their employees to take on some of their responsibilities.
That's
That's
it.
why they're so busy. But if
There
you
you
train
go.
other people to take on some of the responsibilities and to have a succession plan, because that is
Mhm.
the other thing I think of. Yes, you don't want to invest in your employees because, quote unquote, they might take your job. But what happens if, God forbid, you drop dead tomorrow?
Right.
Right? Is your dream and your aspiration for that company, is it going to die with you because you did not create a succession plan?
So, Dr. Simon, if I should add, in accounting, because I used to be an accounting professor for 15 years before I went into leadership. In accounting, there is a principle. It's called the going concern concept. Going concern concept, meaning that when a business is planted, it is planted with the view that it will be a going concern for the life of the unforeseeable future, right? for generations to come. That is why some companies, some businesses, some businessmen and women have been very successful at starting a business and passing it from generations to
Yeah.
generation. That is the overarching principle when you start a business. It is supposed to be like that. And if we learn that, then what should we do? Well, if it's supposed to be an ongoing, we have to find techniques and approaches that will cause it to be sustainable, right? We cannot just vike it. If that's, yeah, that's a word, vike, right? Dominica style.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
well said.
Yeah, Shanika, anything you would like to add at this point?
I like that Vikey bike. um, you just said it right. We have been saying it. There is the help that you need if you need to get the leadership training. There are resources that you definitely can tap into, whether it's your own personal story that you can really hone in on and be able to educate, uplift. I think if we look at leadership just in I am a leader and I'm a big boy in the place, then yeah, of course, you're just going to see yourself only as that one person. But we know the leadership is about impact, right? It's about making those connections and the cultural shift that we need to make. Because if we even think about leadership in we haven't really talked about this so much, but think of leadership in the entertainment world. Look
Mhm.
at the impact that our music is making. That's leadership,
Mhm.
right? That is another idea of leadership that we haven't even tapped into. And so if we look at leadership from just a business, a 9 to 5, and we don't realize that our impact is in our culture, it can be done by leaders, by leadership styles, right? So what can we use? What can we learn from the entertainment industry in Dominica that
Mhm.
impact our 9 to 5, right?
Mhm.
So it's really, again, going back to we can be catalysts, and catalyst is we can learn from each other. Because if we see everybody as out there, they're a vendor, this person has that shop down the road, and you don't see them as a partner, then we cannot grow as leaders,
Mhm.
right? And so if Simone has her shop down the road and I have my shop up the road, and I know that she sells the best fish and I sell the best bakes, I can say, well, if you come and buy my bakes, then you can definitely go down to Simone's shop and put that fish together, that fried fish, and there you go, have it. So both of us are thriving. So if you begin to have that mindset, you become a leader in the community.
Mhm.
And I've just given you an example right there of how you transform not just leadership in a 9 to 5 type mindset, but leadership in your own community.
And I loved what Dr. Laura said in terms of, that gelling of personalities at work, because those are the things we don't think about. We don't think
Mhm,
about that group dynamics.
mhm,
How do people relate to others? And then
mhm,
when you remove someone and you introduce somebody else, now,
mhm,
it's not just time spent on training the new employee, it is
mhm,
also time spent on learning that person.
mhm,
What is the person's personality? Does the personality gel with the other folks in the office, or does this person not gel with us? So it creates this whole new dynamic where you already had an established dynamic going. So some very important thoughts that we're sharing, and it also speaks to organizational culture. We
mhm,
cannot have this conversation if we're not talking about the organization culture. Is it conducive to growth? Or is it just another toxic environment where employees spend more time talking about each other and gossiping? And I was in that particular situation.
mhm,
Because as West Indians, I don't know if you guys have had that experience, but we don't talk about our personal life at work. And I was pretty much ostracized because I worked with a bunch of American women and they all wanted to talk about, their families, and they wanted to gossip about, it was a training and development department. And they all wanted to gossip and talk about the trainers that were coming in to do the training. And I had no interest. I had no interest. So apparently I I didn't fit into the organizational culture, so I had to make my exit. But on a serious term, we have to think about what is the organization's culture.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a culture that's fostering growth and development, or is it a culture that is a toxic environment where you just want to come in, do your 9 to 5, and get out of there? By the time it's like 4:59.
Right.
That's Laura.
Right.
Oh,
And I,
that's
I think, with culture too, if you have to think about a 9 to 5, one of the things that, organizations, we do need to look at when we talk about our Dominican culture, right? Do you have policies? Do you have procedures outlined for people to follow? Do you have compliance? Do you have safety rules and compliance? Do you have exit signs? Basic things that you think that are very simple makes people feel safe in an organization or in a company. Um, do you have that transparency? Do you have, if there is an emergency, do you have an evacuation plan? Those are things, believe it or not, that really do affect the subconscious of a person working in an environment. How
Mhm.
safe do you feel? In the United States, as I said, I work in a healthcare organization. And one of the things that we do on a regular basis is we, we love audits in America. Let me just tell you, we audit like crazy. And so I have become very familiar with auditing. Like for instance, I'll give you, for an employee who is hired in the medical field, there are things that you must have. You must have your CPR, right? There must be a continuation of education. And I can go down the list of things that should be done. There are compliance agencies that will come into an organization and review and audit our work. When I say our work, meaning the organization's work, um, as per what it says that it's supposed to do. So if I'm an HR person, I say that I will make sure that the person is very aware of their job description and what it entails. That auditing agency will come in, ask, is there a job description? Has that person been trained? Are they trained with their competencies? So again, when I think about leadership and training, we have to look at the organization. What is the structure of the organization? What are you sitting on, right? So are you sitting on safety, compliance? Um, that is what I would like to ask on an organization that says, well, I need to train, or I need help, or I am struggling here. It's like, I would want to almost take it apart, because everybody wants to make money, but we want to know, how are you making money, or how are you making your employees feel, or how are you um, conducting your business?
Yeah, so Dr. Laura, I want to come to you because the question of organizational culture, and I also want you to take it from the perspective of how do you create the culture that you want in your organization. So the importance of organizational culture, the work environment, that's what we're talking about, the importance of the work environment that you're in, and how do you, as the owner of the company, the leader of the company, the manager, how do you create the culture that you want within your organization?
It's simply, in my opinion, that's with two things: the vision statement and the mission statement. They dictate where we want to go, they dictate what we are set up to do. And if you really mean what you say on those statements, then you employ the techniques and tactics to get there. You cannot get there by processes only. You get there when you combine processes with people. In other words, the formula is people plus processes equals success. Right? Now, we have to first say, okay, for me to get there, I need to create a learning organization. Now, what's a learning organization? You cannot, an organization, chairs and desks and computers, they cannot learn. People learn, right? So when we say we want to create a learning organization, we are really directing that attention to people. So the question is, what is it that you want them to learn? How do you want them to learn? And for how long you want them to learn, right? So a leader, the leaders must say, I want to have continuous learning. I want my people to continually develop. It's not a one shot. Most time when people ask me to come and do a workshop, I'm like, then what? Then what? Okay, I came. You pay me X amount of dollars to do a workshop for you. Then what?
Mhm.
Unless we have matrix or matrices where we measure performance. What is it that we're training on? How are we performing today? How are we going to evaluate? We evaluate ourselves like 3 months later, 6 months later, and see whether that intervention by me or whoever the consultant is has made a change in performance,
Mm-hmm.
right? So leaders must first understand what they want and go for it with the help of a coach or research or some subject matter expert helping them navigate the journey of running the organization. All right.
Mm-hmm.
We have to start with the vision and the mission statement.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I like the expression, you have to spend money to make money, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
have to be willing to invest in your own company if you want to increase the profitability of your company. So guys, take a quick break, take a water break as we get ready to turn it over to the studio for the phone calls. And again, this is Roots Connections, and this evening we are talking about, are we investing in our human capital for the advancement of Dominica? And as you're calling in, the comments on Facebook keep coming in, I want you to relate this to other segments of society as well. So again, we're keeping it to employment, but this is such a vast topic that it can apply to so many other segments, sectors of society. So if you want to relate it to your observations in other parts of society, you can feel free to do so. So Lambi, over to you for the phone numbers, and then Facebook, keep the comments coming. I'm seeing the great contribution you're making, so keep the comments coming. I'm coming over to you in just a minute.
You're listening and viewing Roots and Q. Our numbers are as follow: 449 3095, 449 3096, 449 3097, 616 4257. These are all local numbers, and the overseas number 305 432 9624. Let me run those numbers one more time: 449 3095, 449 3096, 449 3097, 616 4257. Those are local numbers, and the overseas or international number 305 432 9624. Back to you, Simon.
Yes, thank you. And again, thank you everyone who's locked in on the Facebook. Alvin says, bonsoir, tuned in. Good to see you, Kevin. Alista Irish, always locked in. My doctor, you already know. Hey, my neighbor, nice to see you. Carl Kofi, greetings and continued blessings. Thank you, Carl. Let's see. Heavis Badwell, good evening to you. We have a phone call. Let's go over to the phone lines.
Thanks
Hey,
for
good
calling.
evening to you, Dr. Simon Lambi. Good evening, and to the other panelists in there.
Good
Good
evening.
evening to you guys and to the listeners. Dr. Simon, it's always a pleasure listening and contributing to your conversation because we have so many things going around. But I want to say kudos to you for always having a thought-provoking subject and
Thank
something that
you.
is of relevance that gives us something to think about. And I just heard you talk about how one of your panelists, the doctor, responded to one of your questions as to how do you set a culture in a company? How do you set a culture? And he rightly stated it begins with your mission statement and what you value. But more importantly, I think when you get through these interventions, it's not just about getting results, but getting desired results. So if you identify an issue and you say, hey, what is really my value? Is my value development of people? Is my value making profits? Is my value increasing, getting market share? Is my value related to the preservation of the environment? Is my value based on sustainability? Because right now there are so many things that are happening in businesses, and our brains are not just based on, we have a business to produce and profits and, the greed that happens in the capitalist system or in the business world. But the saying now is we are spending all this intellectual and human capital, but we are not paying attention to the environment. And if we destroy the environment in the future, then what is the purpose of all this? So a lot of companies now are dealing with sustainability, and it requires us to think of us as human beings. What is the real value of all this development, all this business, all this productivity? So I think it requires, in this present moment, the era we're in, it requires a new assessment of our education, our business system. How are we how are we making the best of our human capital at the same time preserving the environment? Because the subject you have is so broad. I mean, when you talk about this business, you're talking about manufacturing productivity, all these things that comes with other end products or other undesired undesired materials that we have to deal with. For example, if you look at the industrial revolution, industrial world that built the economy, that built wealth, that built the efficiencies, it is the sole reason why we are talking about global warming that leads to hurricanes, storms, disasters, and all these things. Mm-hmm. That itself leads to new industry. So it's very, very, very broad when you talk about the development of the human capital. And I think the most important thing as a country, and in the past few years, what we have seen happening is students are being sent to study, which is great in developing your human capital. But are we developing? Are we adding value to the students so that they can come back home and be creative, be independent, be open-minded to use that knowledge and skills, creativity and talent to identify new avenues for development and growth in this new era in our country? Or are we sending them blindly without a goal or a plan so that they can develop other countries? So it's a lot of things you got to ask yourself in this current state of affairs, because we are not just competing in Dominica. The world has become so small. We are competing on a global level. And how do you give yourself an advantage so that the young folks are not just being stagnant in the level of education they have, but being productive and moving somewhere as we gain new skills, we gain new competencies in an ever-changing environment. And I think that's the most important thing when you're talking about adding value to your human resource capital, so that they can better sustainably help in the development of themselves first and their country. But that's all I will add. Listening as always.
Yes.
Conversation.
Yes, thank you, Lennon. Thank you so much, as always, for your contribution. And you're so correct, because there's just a vast amount of areas we can cover with this conversation. But I like that you mentioned our students, because our youth is really the human capital that needs the most investing, right? So when we send the students away to study, what are the opportunities that are available for them when they come back to Dominica? And are we sending them to study in the right fields? Are we doing any assessments of what do we need in Dominica, so we can direct the students into the fields, the industries that are needed in Dominica? So thank you very much, Lennon, for that contribution. So back to the Facebook Live, YouTube Live. Kiki Laura, nice to see you. She said, interesting point. Dr. Laura, I'm assuming that's a relative, Doc? Cordelia.
That's my daughter.
Oh, hey, daughter. Nice to see you. Cordelia Grace, go mommy. Whose mom is
It's
that?
my daughter.
Oh. Wow, it's
that's my 8-year-old daughter who's listening.
Oh.
And to the point that you are making, or the caller was making, it's encouraging the young people, right? Mm-hmm. So it's also letting our young people be exposed. I'll tell you this: I work in human resources. My daughter knows that I work in human resources, and there are questions that she will ask me, and there are things that I will say to her. And if she does something that is not really acceptable, I would say that's an infraction. So understanding the speak from now.
Good.
So we have to teach people, and as I said, tap into the resources that you have.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a young person who is really questioning their, what's next, we are out here, and I'm sure there are tons of people who've gone. I mean, I came here to school, so I'll tell you my story really quickly in 2 seconds. I came to the United States to go to school. um, I did my undergraduate degree and I did my master's degree, and so I have both degrees. I have a master's, in leadership and development as well. So, was it easy? Absolutely not. But I can tell you, I have some bruises and cuts that I can show you, I can share with you, and then you can learn from that. So tap into what we have out here. Tap into the other fellow Dominicans who are willing to share with you what where we've bruised, we have gotten guiges, and we have learned quite a bit. So please, come to us, ask questions.
Absolutely. Sharon Darrival, good to see you. She says the diasporans are trying. Island Classics, nice to see you. We're looking forward to that event on Friday. He says one person with passion is like 100 with interest. Richard Andrew, great to see you. Interesting conversation. My mom, Medina Sandhouse, good evening. D.A. Rose viewing, nice to see you, Mom. Alvin Thomas, the change in any organization starts at the top. How do you get that leadership mindset to effect that needed change all the way down into the organization? In other words, if the leader does not have that change mindset, nothing happens. Island Classic, Joseph, nice to see you. Joseph Gist, I agree. Change starts from the top in companies where the leadership is weak. How can employees manage up? Sharon Louf Francois says, great to see you on the panel. Dr. Laurent, Island Classics, change takes time. You have to have a formal and informal cultural ambassador who embodies the organizational culture, who works daily in and out of the classroom to build the type of culture that encourages success. So guys, take notes of any of the comments you want to respond to as I continue reading them. Anthony Simon, good night, doctor, and your panel from Kalibishi tonight. Island Classic again. Change takes time. You have to, okay, we read this one already. Let's see who else we have. Carl Kofi James, hail up my classmate, Dr. Laurent. Great conversation by the panel. Miss K, go daddy. Okay, must be another relative. Huguette Centelia, great to see you. Great conversation. Huguette also says, I have walked into a business place and felt the culture right away. I have walked into a business place and felt the culture right away for the good and the bad, right, Huguette? Anthony Simon, the young people are dying in great numbers on island as we speak. Dr. Motorcycles are mainly the cause now. Thank you for that. Sandra Norris, a very interesting and important conversation. Good night, Dr. Simone and guests. I've been listening on the app in the car. Now I'm at home listening. Wow. So Sandra, you have us covered. So guys, thank you so much for your contributions on the Facebook and YouTube Live. Keep the conversation going as we continue the discussion. Dr. Laura, you have some thoughts to share?
Yeah, I just interesting comments you just read. One of them from Alvin, I think Alvin Thomas talked about how do you trickle down the vision from the top down to the bottom. And Shanika told us earlier on that the leader really starts the cultural flair for the company, right? And she's so right. Both of them are right. What I would have to say about that is that there are four things in leadership. And when I talk leadership, I'm mostly talking leadership development. It's different in my book from just leadership. I'm not talking about positional leadership. I'm talking about leadership development. As business people, we said that it is incumbent on us to develop our direct reports, right? There are four leadership areas that I emphasize: personal leadership, people leadership, thought leadership, and results leadership. Now, of all, the foundational one is personal leadership. What does that mean? You cannot lead people, you can't get the results you want unless you have personal leadership as a leader. So what does that mean? Among the tenets of personal leadership, I would mention things like integrity. I would mention things like intent. I would mention things like your capabilities. Are you humble enough to know that you are not capable of leading in that area because you have not exemplified it in your own personal life? And the fourth thing about personal leadership I would like to mention is results. If you cannot, if you have not mastered getting up early in the morning to go to work, you cannot be too forceful on an employee who comes to work late, right? That means you have not mastered the things that are required. So, Alvin, to answer the question about how do you trickle in integrity, and people have all kind of definitions for integrity. But when I do my workshops, I use a definition for integrity that comes in three parts. One is alignment. You get to walk your talk as a leader. If you say all companies set up to do this, that, then exemplify it. That's the second, the other thing, and that will be trickled down to the lower, the direct reports, right? Now, another critical thing out of the three is humility. you, you should not be, you should not be concerned about being right as much as you're concerned about doing right or what is the right thing to do, right? When you talk about integrity, that humility of I don't have to be right. I'm not so concerned about being right as much as standing up for what is right. That's a key. And the third thing I think that would help in the trickling down of the culture would be courage. Courage. When you talk about integrity as a leader, personal leadership, I'm talking about you have to do the right thing, especially when it is hard to do. You have to do it. When it is not popular, you still have to do the right thing. And you have to do it even when nobody is watching.
Yeah, and what about transparency? I think that is a very important aspect of leadership as well. Because sometimes we have leaders and we have no clue what they're doing behind our back. So the importance of transparency. We also have leaders that are leaders of every department, right? So before there's a press conference, you see the same leader over and over, and you're wondering, well, don't you have managers that are supposed to manage the other departments of the organization, right?
Right,
So
right.
so so the importance of all of this, Shanika, your thoughts?
Yeah, I was thinking, and that would breed toxicity. And so a lot of times you hear managers speak about it's a toxic work environment. Sometimes people throw those words around and they're not able to unpack it. But that is a perfect example of what a toxic work environment would be. Is if you see the same leader showing up for every function and is always the one to speak, always the one up front, um, that you don't have to ask and you don't have to wonder whether it's a toxic work environment or not. You can Those are the telltale signs. So just like you can trickle down a good culture, you can also trickle down a bad culture.
A toxic culture. Yeah, and we have so much more to talk about leadership. But before we really get into the leadership conversation, I also want us to talk about some tools that we can use in terms of growth and development of our employees. So I think it begins with testing, right? Shanika, I think you will agree with me. The
Yeah.
importance of testing our employees to see what their competencies are, to see what the best fit within the organization is. So talk to us, Shanika, about the importance of testing.
So, with testing, you want to make sure that you have guidelines, right? So, we don't want to just test randomly. We want to make sure our testing is consistent. The way that I test Jim is the same way I'm going to test Sally. And it's written, it's documented, it's hardwired. That's another term that a lot of organizations use. So, we want to make sure that we have a pre test and we have a post test. So, for instance, if we have a new hire that comes into an organization, we would do what you call an onboarding. So you have a period of which where you have the human resources person like myself who would come and you talk about your benefits and you talk about maybe the overarching culture of the organization, how the organization had started, what are some of the impacts that the organization has had in the environment or in the community. So that's typical what the human resources person would say. They would talk about benefits. They would talk about any regulations, any policies, but then the competency begins with the manager, right? So you want the manager now to talk about this is where you are in terms of coming into the organization, and this is where you need to be. And we're going to coach you along and sign off on a document, a tracking document that says that we have trained you, we have oriented you onto the ways of which we're expecting you to be. And so testing, we have tested in that realm. In other organizations, I've seen where before you come into, even step foot into the organization and be a part of the family or the organization, you do something where you do pre-testing, right? They may ask you to write um, maybe something about the organization, and that's part of the interview phase, right? And then there is the other portion where, testing could just be, for every sort of year, right, where there's an evaluation period of your skill set, there is also a testing component that comes along with it. And I say that speaking to a healthcare industry, right? So, for instance, if we have our nurses, if we have our allied professionals, they should be tested yearly to make sure that their skill set is up to par. So testing and can look different, right? Different different it can look different in the lifespan of the employee. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And Dr. Laura, we talk about employee growth and development, but another aspect of the conversation is employee motivation, right? Because how do we motivate our employees to do better? And immediately, I don't want to get too technical, but the reinforcement theory comes to mind, right? What are the incentives, right? Not every employee is motivated by a paycheck. My last 9 to 5, the greatest motivation for me is that on Fridays we left at 12, right? So we worked an extended day, another day of the week. So you might work from maybe 9 to 7 p.m. on Wednesday, but then you got to look forward to Friday, where you would leave at 12, right? And that way you would have a pretty much a 3-day weekend every weekend, right? So let us talk about, employee motivation. What are some options, some ways we can motivate our employees so that they can do better and they can grow within the organization?
That's a
Mm-hmm.
good area to talk about. Um,
Mm-hmm.
your greatest resource are your employees. And
Mm-hmm.
you must not, as Shanika just implied, you must not assume that one size fits all, right? So one of the techniques that is suggested for employers is to have a suggestion box uh,
Mhm.
that people can just drop ideas of what brings more satisfaction to them at work. And you might be able to dissect and maybe do a compilation of those ideas and implement what is possible within your budget. Um, Comp time is another one that people do here. There are many techniques, and that, like you said, I used to work for this aerospace company, aerodynamics, and we had the option to work 5 days or 4 days, 4 10s or 5 8s, and I loved the 4 10s because I just know I work in for 10 hours for four
Yeah,
days, and Thursday night I'm gone to Dominica or
yeah.
wherever, and I have till Sunday night to come back. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's but there are many other tools that can be applied. Some companies and some people are motivated by money. There's a thing called for performance, P for P, and that's basically a tool that HR departments commonly use to encourage or incentivize employees to meet their goals or maybe exceed their goals in exchange for some monetary incentives. And so, um, for some people, that is a big tool, and it has its benefits. It has its drawbacks as well because it can create dissent among the team, but it has to be properly managed. But it also ensures, if it's well managed, it ensures that the goals, the overarching goals of the organizations are met while people are meeting their individual goals. And
Mhm.
talking about goals,
Mhm.
one of the most frustrating things for employees in companies are that they don't have clear goals and they are just wing. What is the word I used earlier on, Dominica style?
Vikey bye.
Viking their way through it. It's just I go to work and whatever they tell me to. But if if we have a proper goal setting practice where manager meets with employee and set individual goals on certain tasks that connects to the overarching goal of the company, that in itself is motivational. The employees will feel, and when they lack or when they fall short of the goals, there need to be what you call the performance conversations. And not every employer or boss or manager is trained to have those kind of conversations because those conversations can do more harm than good. Because from the moment you tell somebody, I want to talk with you, no, 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 not no, I want to talk to you.
Yep. Yep. Talk to
Big,
you.
big difference. I want to talk to you. I want to with you. The talk to you is threatening,
Yep.
especially when the person feels that they are falling short of their performance. But talking with you, there's a dialogue, and we must separate those words. Having a debate, having a discussion, and having a dialogue. You get much more out of a dialogue. And I teach techniques of having dialogues versus the other things like discussion or because when you say discussion, it reminds me of percussion or concussion. I'm banging on you. Dialogue from the Greek term with. We exchange ideas and we come up with common meaning between us. So
Right.
these are
Words have power.
these are very important nuggets that will make a manager or a boss or an owner effective as a leader and their people.
Yeah, and I wanna come back to what you just said, Shanika. Words have power, but I also want your views on employee motivation because I'm sure you have some ideas in terms of how employees can be motivated to perform better.
You know, I do believe that people can be motivated also by knowing that they have some more flexibility with their family, they have some
Yeah.
more time with their family. I feel that people are motivated by also knowing that there is that one-on-one on my calendar. It's not a reprimand, it's a conversation with my manager just to check in. So people can be motivated by that. People can be motivated by having a retirement plan. What happens when I turn 65 or 70 or 75 or whatever time that I decide to stop working, right? People can be motivated by that. I have seen colleagues here in America who would have an app on their phone. It's a retirement app, and they would literally look at that every so often to see how much longer do they have to work? So people are motivated by knowing that there's a nesting egg. Now in Dominica, do we have that for our colleagues or for our workers? So people are motivated by things like that, right? And so a company might ask, how do we even begin to look at our package? Again, tap into the resources that you have, right? There could be a collaboration, a catalyst, hint, hint that word again, a catalyst with an organization that is already in Dominica that you can work with to enhance your benefit package, right? So all of those things can be motivation. I work from home. That is a big motivation for me.
Me
I don't
too.
have to go into traffic. Have we thought about the flexibility of work? Have we thought about some type of job sharing? I mean, there's so many opportunities. And I also want to say there's something that we have in America called wrongdoing. And it's really more of a healthcare type term. It's where you meet with your direct reports every month. And what you do is that you ask them a set amount of questions. And at the end of those questions, you ask, just like McDonald's, is there anything else I
Yes,
can
hold
do
your
for you?
thought, Shanika. We have a phone call. So remember what you were saying, okay?
Mhm. Sure.
Good evening, caller. Please go ahead.
Hello, good evening. Good evening to you all.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening again. Very, very, very good conversation. And
Thank you.
in reference to talking about what can motivate, I know you can also show the employees that you're interested in them,
Yep.
in their well-being, probably what they're going through, you know. And I think when employees know that you are interested in them, not only to come to that job, not only to carry out the functions that you might be paying them to, but you go beyond in reference to knowing some, personal issues that they might share with you. And remember, I say use the word might. All this will have the employees even more interested in coming to work because they might have an area to voice, to share, and probably get some results, what probably they would not have expected ordinarily. So that again is another area where you can use to motivate your employees,
Yes, thank you. Thank you,
So,
caller.
you will use the different. Okay? Bye-bye.
Yes, yes, excellent point. Thank you so much for sharing. And I just wanted to piggyback on something you were saying, Shanika, before we allow you to continue. Social security is supposed to be an avenue for retirement in Dominica, but when we hear employees complaining that they are paying the social security, but it's not getting paid to social security, so where's the money going? So it's another level of concern, the need for transparency again, to ensure that what is promised to employees are actually what is being delivered. And I like that we're talking about flexibility as well, because we're seeing that is ongoing, the flexibility of workers, especially in the healthcare department, where you have some doctors now working 7 days on and 7 days off, but they're working 12 hours a day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
what you end up having is potentially you work 2 weeks out of the month and you're off 2 weeks out of the month. So just some ideas we are throwing around to help with that, investing in employees, helping to invest in employees as we work to advance Dominica. So go ahead, Shanika, you were talking about rounding.
And wronged, and then it also talks to the co-creation, right? So, the 12 on and 12 off. I personally, it's a great idea, and I'm sure it came from the team. The team were the ones who probably suggested, hey, you know what, we have a great idea, maybe this could work. um, and that's why you have to tap into your genius. There is a collective genius that we have, no matter what organization, what company, how big, how small. There is a collective genius within your two-person group, 50, 100, whatever group that
Yeah.
you are missing out on if you do not tap into it. And so there are plans, there are motivational plans. But one of the ways that I always, I ask, I say to people, have you asked? Right? Have you asked your staff? And sometimes people are shy, right? We Dominicans, talking about myself, we don't really want to tell people what we want. We're probably a little bit conservative in asking. So do it anonymously. Give people the opportunity for them to, you know, s- ask about things that, they may not be able to ask openly about job sharing. Some people are more outspoken. Another thing too with leadership, sometimes leadership doesn't always come from the top, right? So we think leadership
Right.
and we think the person who is running the company is obviously the leader. Absolutely not. Sometimes the leader of the organization is the person who is sitting next to you, who has shown a commitment to stand up for you and for everybody else in that room. And that's the leader.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just, if you're an employer and you're listening to this program, if you don't implement any of what we are talking about, the one thing I would recommend that you implement is an anonymous suggestion box, right? So encourage all your employees to write in block letters so you will not know who wrote what, because we all know sometimes employers know the handwriting of
Yeah.
their employees. But ask them to write in block letters, ask them to type, and just provide a suggestion box. What needs to be improved in the organization? How can I be motivated to perform more? What suggestions do I have for certain processes and certain procedures that would be profitable to the organization? So if you don't take any piece of advice that we offer this evening, at least put in a suggestion box in your company to just get a feel for the culture of your organization, to get a feel of what people are thinking and how you can improve. And I also like that we touched on the power of words, because believe it or not, and again, going back to my experience, I'm teaching for about 15 years right now, and going back to my experience, you would be surprised at the number of my learners who tell me that they don't even get a simple thank you. They don't even get a simple thank you for doing their job, or maybe going beyond the responsibilities of their duties. So I think a lot of times employers only provide negative feedback. What about positive feedback? What about having that discussion, like Dr. Laura just mentioned, having a discussion instead of saying, I need to talk to you? But what about saying, why, let us have a discussion? I know many times, there's not a formal appraisal system, which is what is recommended. So you can appraise an employee based on the good things that they're doing and the bad things they're doing. But at least, every 6 months, once a year, sit down with your employee and say, let us have that discussion. Let us have some feedback. You provide feedback on what you need. I provide feedback on where you are doing well, where you can improve. And so we can invest in you. We can have those growth opportunities that we're talking about. Dr. Laura, any thoughts?
Very much so. That is where situational leadership training comes in, where when you set goals with the employees, each individual employee has a job description. That job description should extract task specific to that employee. You as a manager should be sitting with your employee, writing out their goals, which should be evaluated every 3 months, maybe even more often, but at liberty that employee should be able to come to you and say, how am I doing on my goals? What am I missing? Or I'm struggling to meet that goal. Can we adjust it for my good? Because at the end of the year, when appraisal comes, I don't know if I can't remember having formal appraisals in Dominica, but
yeah, some companies do.
Okay, so what are you going to appraise them on? You can't wait from January till December to appraise them when you never intervened to see how well they were doing. It's almost like you're setting them up for failure. You want to check in with them or invite them. I have an open door policy at my office. You can come at any time with your goals. Let's review it to see if we are on track. By mid-year, every employee should know how close to their goal are they, or how far, and what do they need, what resources they need, what aid they need to bring them to achieving their goal. Because going back to the pay for performance, if pay was linked to performance, then the employee wants the pay. You have to help them get it by ensuring that they are on that trajectory to successfully achieving their goal. So I think that's a critical that we address.
Yeah, and I also want you to tell me, because I know that you've done some work with the Dominica State College, so I want you to tell us a little bit of the work that you've done, but you'll be very happy to know that the president of our association, the Dominica Seafocal Alumni Association, which we are proud members on, Mr. Wayne Liebert is with us. So good evening, Mr. President, Mr. Liebert. And he says, what companies in Dominica are implementing your solutions you espouse in their companies? Many companies complain that Gen Z employees are not like Gen X employees. What are your thoughts on that? So Dr. Laura, I think he's sending that question to you, that what happens when you have different generations of employees working together and their needs are different?
Gen Zs are they are very beautiful component to the workplace. We should never think that they are another category. We are the problem. We have not prepared to welcome them into the workplace. In the workplace, they have creativity like a hummingbird on crack.
Oh my gosh, his words, not mine.
Yeah, they are so creative and they are so fast like a hummingbird. We are the slow ones. So because we have not yet prepared for them, we see them as a threat. I think that's where the continuous learning, creating a learning organization at our organizations will cater for those variations in generations. The best team is a team that is made up of senior workers, senior not necessarily in age, but senior in experience, and the newcomers. Because you will put a problem in front of the more seasoned employees, and their answers or their solution might just be so mundane. That's how we've always done it. That's how we're gonna do it. That's it. That's it. Boom, you put it in front of a Gen Z, and oh my God, you will not believe how where did they get those ideas? They are made for this time of our lives, and we must embrace them. So I think I think is my recommendation for leaders is to get trained on how to incorporate the new ideas, the new force through the younger ones into our operation so that we can maximize our output.
Yeah, and to remain open-minded to suggestions and new directions for your company. Shanika, your thoughts? Gen
I
Z,
would
Gen X, so many generations.
I feel like, sometimes we just need to embrace everyone. It's everybody's diverse. Everybody comes with their own bit of genius to the platform, and we just have to be open-minded and see what people bring to the table and not be so critical. I think another way that we get away from being one-sided or a little bit judgmental is when we have those SMART goals that those performance goals that are measurable, then we don't come into a conversation with a Gen Z or someone who may be older from a place of bias. We come from a place of outcome. So if your outcome can be measured, then it takes away the emotional aspect. So one of the things that I would recommend to any manager who's out there listening would be to get trained. Let's help you kind of understand what is expected from you as a manager, and what are you looking at, what are your issues, what are your problems, what is kind of solution that you're looking for, right? So if you think that somebody might be saying, I don't know how to create um a performance improvement plan or goal setting, reach out, because goals should be measurable, and that takes away all the bias once you have to set measurable goals.
Right. And do me a favor, guys, because we're getting ready to wind down the program. The time goes by so quickly. But in the private chat area, provide any contact information that you would like me to share with the audience. So just go ahead and type it in the private chat area, and I will be sure to share it for you. We still have some great comments coming in on Facebook. Sharon Lou Francois says, we celebrate our employees' birthdays and work anniversaries every month, in addition to other company events that we maybe host. We want them to feel appreciated and know that we care. Thank you so much, Sharon. Basi Tusa, my friend, happy birthday again. Yesterday was your birthday. Happy birthday, Basi. I hope you had a great birthday yesterday. She says, in addition to motivation, which is the responsibility of both employer and employee, enhancing performance is critical. Employers must find ways to enhance employees' performance, which can include job redesign, job rotation, job enlargement, etc. Leaders must also be grounded in the various motivation theory from which to draw from. Sometimes environmental factors requires leaders to pivot the way they motivate, even though they have a default approach. So Basi, I can see that Masters from Columbia is working, boy. We were actually the same. We actually have the same master's degree from Columbia University. So Basi, I can tell you remember a lot from our coursework. Colson Shillingford, good evening. Nice to see you. A new and thriving, great program. Thank you for that. And Joseph Gist, so proud of this group. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you so much. So let us quickly talk about youth development, because we have to talk about, investing in our young people, because they are truly the hope of the future. So Dr. Laura, let me begin with you as you tell us about that program that you offer to the Dominica State College.
Yeah, we began this program it was born out of the DISA, or that's the Dominica Alumni, people call Alumni Association. For those who don't know, every year it is intended that we host a fundraiser, a great event called White Sunset.
Yep.
It is intended to raise funds for charity organizations in Dominica. And we've made some significant strides in the last couple of years. So we intend to do that going forward. Well, we have partnered with the Sixth Form College, or the Dominica State College, where we kind of invite participation in our event from the current students at the college. And we thought it wise to, as part of our contribution to the university, to the college, to offer some sort of practical training. And one of the training that we do on an ongoing basis is project management. So I held a project management course with them already. We also did what you call customer astonishment, or a little upgrade from customer service training, but it's customer astonishment, where they learn the best practices as they matriculate through their studies, and as we utilize them in our White Sunset activities, that we provide the utmost in service to our patrons. So this is an ongoing thing. Other people involved in that is Mr. Simeon Joseph, a very effective event and customer service guru in Dominica, one of our colleagues in this organization. And we're under the guidance or leadership of people like Paul Phillip, Wayne Liebert, of course, our president, very effective. So these are some of the courses and training that we are offering to the young people. And we find that they're asking for more. So this year we are just putting the agenda together for the October training.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And let me, before I forget, let me share your contact information. And guys, grab a pen and paper because I will repeat it at the end of the program. So for Shanika, Miss Shanika Hamilton, it is S as in Sam, H as in Henry, A as in Apple, N as in Nancy, I as in India, C as in Charlie, A as in Apple, Michelle, MITCHEL at gmail.com. So that is Shanika Michelle at gmail.com. And for Dr. Laura, his website is www.topedgesolutions.com. And his email address is Dr. Laura, DRLAURENT at leadershipsolutions.com. So I will be sure to post that information, to repeat that information at the end of the program. So again, how are we investing in our youth to take them to the next level, to make sure that they're ready for the work world, to invest in their human resources? And I was very happy to see that one of our Q95 employees, Mr. Richie Farrell, he posted a video today of this new club in Dominica. I don't want to get the name wrong. I think it is the Dominica Youth Entrepreneur Club, which was just founded in March of this year, March of 2024. Because when I started thinking about how are we investing in our youth, I started to think of, well, the Boy Scouts are gone. There's no more Boy Scouts. And of course, we have to have a conversation about the status of men in our society. But it is wonderful to see that new organization being formed in Dominica. So just let us talk about the importance of mentorship, the importance of maybe having apprenticeships for our young people as an investment in our young people in Dominica. So Shanika, take it away.
Sure, mentorship is really important. When I, as I said, when I came here, coming to college, trying to start off my career, I sought mentorship. That's the only way that I was able to, go through what industry I should get into. I love nonprofits because they're very mission driven. Will I stay in nonprofits forever? Maybe, maybe not. But I know that, through mentorship, I was able to really hone in who I was and what I was connected to. So sometimes um, the mentorship piece comes from that, is really asking those key questions as to what motivates you. Where do you see yourself? And asking some questions that, you know, that we can go through and really help someone or help a young person really kind of navigate where they're heading. And people should not be ashamed because we all go through this process. And I feel also to the first step in just mentorship itself is really reaching out. As I say, that there are lots of I'm sure people in Dominican itself who would be able to help other young people who are really questioning or wondering, what's the next step? What's the next level? And another thing too is sometimes we talk about maybe there are no jobs, right? But there is an opportunity to do an unpaid internship. I know we all have bills, but sometimes that knowledge that you're getting from um, coming, showing up somewhere, it's so valuable, the
Mhm.
things that you learn from knowing that you're sitting in an organization with a leader, maybe not getting paid. I mean, of course, we all want our money, we all want to get our hair done, we all want to buy some clothes, but the knowledge that you're getting from sitting in that room with some thought provoking leaders
Mhm.
will take you 20, 30 years of your life. I still remember conversations that I've been in 20 years ago, just being around certain people, while I was growing up. So don't be afraid, young people, to sit in those rooms unpaid, but to listen, to learn. And that knowledge, that nugget, that diligence, that resilience will take you much further.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
And yes, go ahead,
Oh, I
Shanika.
was just going to say too, one of the things that I've done, just being here as well, is I do also do interview preps. So a lot of times people will reach out to me to ask me, I'm having this issue, how do I navigate? Or this is this is what I'm thinking that I want to get into, but I'm not quite sure. I may be too, I don't think I have the skill set. So those are some of the conversations that I have. They're paid conversations, so I do charge for those conversations. But it is a resource that you do, that I offer, and I have been able to help individuals with that.
Yeah, thank you for that. And let me come over to you, Dr. Laura, for your thoughts as well. But as we get ready to wind down the program, I also want both of you to provide us with just some recommendations, as we get ready to leave. And don't forget, guys, if you missed any portion of the program, you can always go back and click on the replay Q95 FM radio on YouTube and Facebook. So if you missed any portion of the program, you can always catch the replay of this program. So Dr. Laura, over to you. The importance of investing in our youth, and also maybe top 3 recommendations that you would like to leave our audience with.
Well, Dr. Simon, it is vital that we continue to develop the bench. Every coach, every one of us is a coach. Every one of us is a leader, and it is important that we understand to win the game, we must have a deep bench, not just the 5 players that's on the court, not the 11 that are playing on the field, but the coach supposed to be able to call any of the guys sitting on the bench to replace or to step in when necessary. That means it is incumbent on us to constantly think of creative ways to invest knowledge and skills in those that are coming with us, behind us. And so our mentorship is very important. I would appeal to the youth in Dominica, take advantage of the diasporans.
Mm-hmm.
You may not access them on a constant basis in person. They might visit often or occasionally. Try to reach them respectfully while they're in town and make the contact.
Mm-hmm.
Ask, find out what they do. See if that piques your interest. Then ask questions like, can I be in relationship with you after you leave? Can we have a weekly? Like, example, I went to the Dominica Grammar School, my alma mater, and I gave a speech to the students last year, October. And while I was speaking at the assembly, one kid was looking at me constantly. And almost he wanted to just come to me. And I couldn't miss it. He was in the front row, but very attentive, but wanting to ask, wanting to engage. So as soon as I dismissed them, I went to him and I said, can I talk to you for a minute? Long story short, this guy gave me his life story, and the teachers saw me talking to him, and later on they were happy to see he was engaging with me. Long story short, he became my mentee. And every Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, we had a phone call just to see how he was doing in school, what he needed, what resources I can provide for him in terms of what he needed. And this guy has excelled in his performance according to his teachers. Now, that relationship was not supposed to be forever. As long as I knew he was doing better, I hand him off.
Mm-hmm.
I am prepared to take on another one. So mentorship can come from direct contact at home or through social media, through phone, through
Technology, Zoom.
technology. So I would encourage our youth to be open, be humble, be respectful, and seek what you want. Go for what you want. Ask, find out, and that will enhance your life.
Hmm. And by the grace of God, that is one of my areas of focus, to create a mentorship program with all the guests. I've been doing this program for 3 years now, so imagine the amount of experts I've brought on this program. So I want to make that connection between the experts and our young people in Dominica, to give them that motivation, that inspiration, to keep going. So, Shanika, any recommendations you would like to leave us with?
I would echo everything that's been said tonight.
Mhm.
If we look at the individual young people, mentorship is always the right path. Stay humble, stay grounded, um, be resilient. And I would say almost the same thing to someone who has been working with an organization for 20 years. Be open, be resilient, be willing to learn. As a manager, I would say to you, it's okay, tap into the knowledge that we just shared, reach out to someone, get get a better understanding of how to manage that team. Because sometimes, you may have a great team, but you might just want to enhance them. Look out for, any development opportunities. Maybe and I'm sure, Dominica is so beautiful and I miss it so much sometimes. There are so many places that we can go to just to have a very simple team building experience,
Yeah.
right? So just tap into what God has given us in Dominica to be able to enhance your working relationship with your teammates. Because sometimes everybody, believe it or not, everybody has stress, regardless of whether they live here or in America or Canada or England. And so everybody welcomes a time where they can go, they can step outside of their work, their 9 to 5, and really bond and collaborate with their team members.
Yes, well, I
So
want to thank you. I want to thank you, Dr. Laura. I want to thank you, Shanika, for being here. Lammy, thank you for facilitating the calls, our Facebook and YouTube viewers, our listeners on Q95 FM radio. Let me be sure to say the information again. Shanika Hamilton is Shanika Mitchell at gmail.com. And Dr. Laura is www.topedgeleadershipsolutions.com. And his email is drlaurent, Laurent. Don't forget the T, at leadershipsolutions.com. So if you would like more information, this is also my area of expertise. You already know how to reach me. Pushpast10 at gmail.com, pushpast10 at gmail.com. And what it boils down to is that we have to see our employees as an asset rather than a liability. So I think in a nutshell, we can sum up this conversation by the importance of changing our mindsets and realizing that instead of thinking of employees as disposable, we should be thinking of them as our greatest assets. Because again, going back to the economic summit that we're about to have on June 4th, all our efforts at nation buildings are futile if we are not investing, if one of the major areas of focus is not how are we harnessing the human capital of Dominica. So thank you everyone for joining.
thank you.
Go Do says very interesting program. Kudos to guest and Dr. Simone Matthew. Thank you so much. Alvin, another great program. A pleasant weekend to all. Happy Memorial Weekend to all in the U.S. And yes, Alvin, I did not forget. Sorry, I haven't had a chance to return your call. But yes, we will be at that event for the Atlanta Carnival, the most upscale and elegant event. So if you want more information, you can simply log on to pushpast10.com, pushpast10.com, and click on the Beyond Remittances link for all the events in your area, including the one in Atlanta this Friday. And I will be there with my dancing shoes. So I'm so looking forward to being there. Joanna says this panel is exemplary. Thank you, Joanna. Dr. Laura, you had one more thought to share?
I was shaking my head with Alvin.
Okay, absolutely. So again, thank you everyone for being here for our
Thank
number
you,
one.
Simon. Thank you so much.
Yes, so our number one program that taps into the human resources and showcases the people, the projects, and the organizations that are geared at moving Dominica forward. We will be back with you on June 12th, with another engaging program. So until then, thank you everyone for being here. I am Simone Matthew. It is always wonderful to be in your company. So until next program, you have a wonderful rest of your evening and a great rest of your week. Take care. Thank you. Thank you, Lambi, Shanika, Dr. Laura. Dr. Laura, hopefully I'll see you on Friday.
I'll see you Friday.
All right. Take
Jealous.
care.
I'm totally jealous.
All right. Come on down. Take care.
All
Bye-bye.
right.
Bye.
Roots Connections on Q, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. every other Wednesday on Q95, the big station. Dominicans journeyed beyond our shores for decades in search of economic opportunities and educational advancement. Many are ready to give back to their cherished nature island. Welcome to Roots